Hey everyone, so in today's video, I'm going to weave in something that I learned from my master's degree in consciousness and human potential from Maharishi, Mahesh, Yogi. In answering, it's answering a very fundamental question of life. Things like, why do we exist? What's the purpose behind this grand tapestry of life? And like the title alludes, what is true success? So if you're new to the channel, I'm John Burchell, and welcome to the channel for the first time. And if you're coming back, well, welcome back. It's awesome to have you, of course. And like I mentioned, today I'm going to dive into the profound perspective shared by Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, and we'll also weave in some profound points from Tony Robbins himself as well, a coach that I absolutely love, and I'm sure a lot of you do as well. I think you'll want to watch this video to the end, and I really mean that because I'm going to attempt to put success into two different buckets. Each bucket, it touches upon these profound questions upon happiness, but from profoundly different perspectives and profoundly different layers in life. And so, how if we achieve one without the other, then we really achieve neither one. How in the end our outside world and everything we experience, our relative life, is really just merely a reflection of our inside world, the absolute world. Now, Maharishi beautifully encapsulates the essence of life from his expansive perspective by saying, expansion of happiness is the purpose of life, and evolution is the process through which it's fulfilled. Now, this profound statement makes me think of other teachers and how in so many different ways they're saying the same thing, just in a different way or a different perspective. For example, one of my favorite teachers is Tony Robbins, and Tony Robbins says that progress equals happiness. That happiness, it comes from progress, not from perfection or not even from achieving goals. What Tony Robbins believes is that we humans, we're most happy when we're growing, not when we've arrived to whatever destination we're trying to go. That achieving goals, yeah, it feels good, but it feels good briefly. But it's a feeling of moving forward. It's a feeling of learning. It's a feeling of improving that sustains happiness over time. Now, Tony Robbins, obviously, he's not a spiritual teacher. Rather, in my opinion, I think he's the godfather of performance coaching, which makes this a really unique angle, which supplements Maharishi nicely, I think. And what Tony's saying is that as life evolves, so does our happiness, so does our intelligence, so does our power from within, and ultimately our creativity. So you might be thinking, isn't there more to life than happiness? And absolutely, that's not what I'm saying or what I think Maharishi or Tony's saying, but let's unpack what we're talking about here. And so Maharishi again is saying expansion of happiness is the purpose of life, and evolution is the process through which it's fulfilled. Tony Robbins, on the other hand, is saying that progress equals happiness. What's beautiful about both of these perspectives, the two of them, is that I think they're saying pretty much the same thing. It's just that one is talking about the absolute nature of life, and the other is talking about the relative aspect of life. However, they're really both still talking about the nature of the human mind, which the nature of the human mind has this desire to gravitate towards happiness, and the mind has a desire to evolve and to expand. Now, Maharishi describes the experience of pure consciousness as bliss consciousness, which is probably a new term that you might have heard before. And he says that the essential nature of pure consciousness is bliss. So when the mind transcends all activity and experiences the self, when it experiences the higher self, the soul, the mind, what it's doing is it's experiencing bliss, not through any external stimulus, but because bliss, according to Maharishi, is the very nature of consciousness itself. So Maharishi, he's talking about how our minds, they're constantly seeking a greater field of happiness, how the human mind, it's constantly flowing towards eternal bliss consciousness, much like rivers flow to an ocean, as an analogy. For myself, I had my very first experience of bliss when I experienced my initial Kundalini awakening. This was before I knew that bliss could be experienced in meditation. It was an interesting experience. I remember sitting in the car, sitting in extremely dense traffic, and feeling this overwhelming sense of contentment, this sense of joy, quite frankly, inner peace, even though I was incredibly late for where I was going. And it was because my mind wasn't thinking, my mind was actually resting at that moment in time as awareness itself. So for myself, that experience of bliss, it was temporary, and it doesn't make me special in any way. It was a temporary experience, but it left me with a permanent impression, and quite frankly, it shifted the course of my life and ultimately shifted my opinion on what I believe success is. I think the best way to communicate what bliss feels like would be, well, it's most importantly to experience it, but to communicate it in words would be to use I need to use a quote from Maharishi again. He said that when bliss consciousness is attained, or when it's experienced, desires fulfill their purpose, and true contentment is achieved. It's a state of lasting peace. So Maharishi, in his true wise fashion, he's again saying that expansion of happiness, or perhaps expansion of bliss consciousness, is the only true way to achieve inner success, which is the state of lasting peace. Let's bring this full circle and back to Tony Robbins, who says that progress equals happiness. What Tony's saying is that it's basically on the same path as Maharishi. It's what he's saying in that the nature of reality, the very nature and essence of life, and perhaps the purpose of life, is evolution, to grow, to change, and to become more. It's all about evolution. The difference between the two, I think it gets to the question that I promised to address in the opening, and so that is the two buckets of success. Now, both are definitely about the attainment of happiness and bliss, for sure. The first bucket, it's what I would call the relative bucket of success. So this is what Tony Robbins is talking about. In this bucket, you'll find things like trophies of success, like a job promotion, buying your first house, reaching, for myself, 1,000 YouTube subscribers, graduating from college, getting that master's degree, winning the 5K race that you've been working so hard to accomplish, and all of that good stuff, all that relative stuff. However, at the bottom of this bucket, underneath all of these milestones, is true relative success, which is progress. Now, achieving a goal, it feels good. It really does, but it's brief, and I think we'd all can agree on that. But it's the feeling of moving forward, of learning, or improving that sustains happiness over time. So success and true happiness is about progress. So for me, sure, I want to gain subscribers, no doubt. I want to hit a milestone of 1,000 subscribers, definitely, if I'm being honest. But is that going to make me happy? Temporarily, yes, for sure. But in the long run, it will always be the journey, the becoming. Goals will come and go like they always do in our lives. It's the progress and evolution of myself that's going to sustain my true happiness. Now, the second bucket is what I think we're really all after, I believe, whether we believe it to be true or not. Now, this is the angle of Maharishi. This is when bliss consciousness is attained. The desires fulfill their purpose, and as Maharishi would say, that true contentment is achieved. And this second bucket is the state of lasting peace, of inner peace. This is why I believe we're all called human beings and we're not called human doings, for a very particular reason. When the mind experiences bliss, it's when the mind can rest because the mind is finally liberated from all of that chatter. And so one bucket is about the mastery of the relative, which falls in Tony Robbins' bucket and is certainly important and something I'm after, and I'm sure you are as well. And then the second bucket is Maharishi's bucket, which is the bucket of the absolute. And I'll leave you with a question. You know, what does success look like for you? Is it the attainment of goals? Is it the nature of progress itself, always becoming? Is it the attainment of inner peace from liberation of pain and suffering? And so that's a question for you to think about. For myself, I want it all. I like both buckets. I like the buckets that fall into the relative, always becoming, and the absolute, that inner peace. I really do want it all. And I can't help but think we can have it all. And I want success, again, in the relative world, to achieve my goals and always be becoming more and achieving more. However, I can't help but think or imagine anything better than attaining that inner peace, than having the lived experience of bliss. And so with that, I'll see you next time.